to another episode of the Senior Podcast Show. I am your host, Corey Lear, and I am here today with two very special guests. I have James Feeney here. Welcome, James.
Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. And Traci, welcome to the Senior Podcast Show. I've been trying to get them on for weeks and weeks, and they're just so busy. I finally wore them down, and here they are. So thank you both for joining me. They are both a part of our senior network. They are one of our senior network partners. They are one of the groups that we utilize to really help one of our senior clients, or all of our senior clients, I should say. So they have interesting backgrounds. They help seniors in a kind of a unique niche.
Absolutely.
Jim was saying. So I'm happy for you guys to be here to be able to tell our audience a little bit about that. You guys are the co-owners of Brookview Realty and Senior Realty Experts.
That's correct.
I think it's a very interesting time for real estate right now. You guys have been on a roller coaster the past few years.
Yes, for sure.
Traci, you can talk about how COVID really accelerated the market.
Well, we went into COVID not knowing if we would even have a market when we came out, and we had listings that suddenly were just completely locked down, and we couldn't show them, nobody could see them, we couldn't do any real estate at all.
Right.
And then when they took that lift off, I mean, it was like
gangbusters.
I mean, it was like nothing I've ever seen before.
There was a huge pent-up demand for housing. I think a lot of people, because they were working from home, they had more time to think about maybe moving.
Being trapped in your house.
The websites.
Being trapped in the house with their families.
And
they needed more space. Yeah.
Well, and true, you're right. At that time, we didn't know how long we were going to be in that state. I mean, it seemed like we would never get out of it, honestly.
Right.
So because of that, there was a lot of buyer demand, which tended to really help the market as far as home prices. It became a super strong seller's market, which was really good for most of our clients in the senior space. We were getting record amounts for these homes. A lot of our sales are in condo communities. And you can really track the sales of a condo community, right? It'll tell you, among 100 condos, and they're all pretty similar size, right? We were getting the top dollar over the, ever since these condos were built, in amount of equity and money out of these condos for these seniors. And that's something that we really focus on, is making sure we maximize the net proceeds for the seller, because that's their biggest asset.
Yeah.
And they should get the most money for that.
Well, and two, I mean, not to jump ahead too far, but your specific, or one of the companies, I should say, that you are part of, Senior Realty Experts, like that is what you focus on, because that's their last home.
Correct.
And so, trying to get whatever equity they have out to really make sure they have a quality life after selling it is so important at that time. I mean,
it's so important, because genuinely that is what they're counting on.
That's their retirement.
That is their retirement. That is what's going to pay for, the senior living community and the care going forward. So, yep.
So, I mean, at that time, I guess if you were thinking about senior living, it would have been a good time to get out.
Yep.
Before we get too far ahead, though, do you, Traci, want to share a little bit about your background in real estate?
So I am an associate broker, and Jim and I we had been partners with the Senior Realty Experts for several years before we were offered the opportunity to purchase Brookview Realty. So we jumped into that, and I had specialized in just normal real estate for years, and then over the years, having several senior clients recognize the need that they had for, somebody that specializes in selling that final home and moving to a senior community. A lot of times they had adult children that weren't living in the state. They were out of the area. They were on their own. They were overwhelmed. And it was just literally like helping them through. And I won't speak for James, but it was the same for him, that we literally started just talking about it and realizing the need for it, because it's completely different than, our average real estate client.
Absolutely. Of course it is. And most of these clients, I'm sure, as you know, have lived in the home for many, many years.
That's true, Corey. We find that they're homeowners since the 70s or 80s. And as you can imagine, most of you know that when you're in a home for that amount of time, you accumulate a lot of stuff. A lot of times these seniors are reluctant to move or scared to move because they're trapped by their stuff.
Yeah.
They don't even know where to start. They've talked to their children and their grandkids who don't want any of their stuff, which
is sad.
It's sad.
It makes them feel sad. Yeah.
Because a lot of times they collect the stuff thinking that, it could be good to pass down
even
generations.
Still, when I clean out my garage, I'm like, please, someone just take the stuff so I don't feel so bad throwing it away, right?
Yeah.
That's even no matter how old we are. We want some, we feel like it's being used by someone.
And a funny story, when we started this, one of our very first senior clients that we did together, she was completely alone, no family members, and so we spent our weekends packing up her basement and putting everything in our cars and driving it to the actual donation places because she just simply couldn't bear to let it go or have it thrown out.
Away.
And we spent hours and hours and hours because we had nobody to help us yet. We didn't have a company to help us do this yet. And we literally, that was how this was all born.
I think that's a testament to how you show how much you care about your clients.
It's very rewarding, this type of real estate, because we are providing a service that they really do need. It's not just simply a transaction. It's a relationship we're building with the senior and the senior's kids and grandkids. One thing I wanted to touch on that you just brought up is when Traci says that we helped that one senior move out the things, she had the emotional attachment to the things.
Yeah.
That's why she couldn't do it herself. She was incapable, not physically, it was mentally. So having a third party, somebody who's not emotionally attached to those things, makes the process go quicker and makes the process possible. A lot of times it'll take years to declutter a home because everything has value to the seniors that have been collecting this stuff over the years.
Yeah, you raised your family there most of the time if they've been there for that long. I mean, everywhere you look, you think, oh, do you remember that time or this time? It's hard.
And how much stuff is going to fit in a 600 square foot apartment, at a nice senior living community? If you're moving from a house of 2,500 or 3,000 square feet that's full of stuff, you really have to seriously downsize.
And that's why, definitely people should start doing it sooner rather than later. That's way,
true.
when they're finally ready to do that and they're finally ready to call you guys and say, hey, I'm looking to get out now, it won't be so hard because you'll have, pared down so many
But
things.
that being said, it's never too early to contact us because we can help get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
So don't wait too long to contact Traci or me because we can help you with the right resource to help with the decluttering process.
Absolutely. Right. Do you want to talk a little bit about what brought you into real estate really quickly, James?
So I've also been a real estate agent for many, many years. And in 2016, I went through the process after my mom had passed away from Alzheimer's of getting my mom and dad's condo that they had since 1987, I think, ready to sell. And it took a long time, and it was very, very tough on me. I have siblings that are outstate, so everything kind of fell on me to manage the process. I had to hire an estate sale company. I had to hire handymen to fix some deferred maintenance that had been going on in the condo. Like there was a bathtub in the basement that hadn't been working for years. Well, you got to get these things operational to pass the home inspection. So through that process, I think it took about 3 months before I could, market the house and put it and list it for sale. Even after that, there were still some things caught in the home inspection that we had to get fixed before we could close on the condo. So that was in 2016. Late that year, I said to myself, there's a way I can help more seniors with this need and their families. So I was researching on National Association of Realtors, and I came across this specialty designation called Seniors Real Estate Specialist. So I took the 2-day class, and I told Traci about it. And she shortly thereafter, or maybe we took it together, took the same class, and we've just been on the run with senior real estate experts ever since. We launched it officially as a separate real estate LLC back in early 2017.
That's amazing. I think that's so important. Again, that shows your testament to how important helping the senior is to you guys. You mentioned kind of going above and beyond in the relocation process, but then also to get that designation. It's more than just a 2-day class.
Oh, it is.
It's a credential. So,
and each of our clients, they really have separate needs. And some of them just need more help than others, and we just take it case by case, and we get pretty attached throughout.
Yeah,
we spend a lot of time with them. We don't email and do digital signatures with our senior clients. We are sitting at their table with them, having lunch with them, and just guiding them through that way. So,
well, and again, because it's such a different situation than a regular buyer or seller that you guys would work with, you do have to have those different modifications. No e-signing, maybe some can, but not obviously everybody can.
Right.
So based on that, do you guys have any advice for a senior that is looking to sell right now in this market? I know you mentioned the pandemic. Obviously things are a little bit different right now. So what advice do you have for those clients right now?
Well, I could say firstly, it's still a good market to sell. Market's probably only down about 5% versus the height of last spring and summer. So I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you if prices are going to further go down.
We're working on that.
but there's still a lot of value in homes in Southeast Michigan. I think I would encourage just contacting Traci or myself to schedule a consultation at no cost just to assess the situation. It may not be the right time to move this year, but we can help, with a timeline as to how to get to the goal of listing your house and selling. I can say that some of these homes maybe aren't quite safe for the senior, especially if the senior's living by themselves. Yes, they can have the alert buttons and all this, but if the bedrooms are upstairs and the laundry is in the basement, they're living in a huge colonial, it's not safe for an 85-year-old person who's not as ambulatory as they used to be. I've heard stories. My aunt passed away from falling down the basement stairs.
Oh my gosh.
She should not have been living in her home because the laundry was in the basement at the end. And that's just a personal story that I have. She should have moved earlier than she did.
Well, I think we find that a lot. I feel like in my experience working with seniors and things, they really feel like sometimes leaving their home feels like losing independence.
It's a great point.
But at the same time, I think it's important to have conversations like what you're saying, encouraging people to talk about it, because I think that they would find that while you're worried about who's shoveling snow or who's cutting the grass and who's doing that maintenance, those things that can lead to dangers or crisis situations, the stress that you have relieved after leaving the home really makes a big difference on your mindset.
Well, and
sometimes being attached to the house makes you depressed.
Right.
And all alone, isolated.
Yeah.
Yes. So one of the things we see over and over again, and one of the strategies that we employ, are one of the most important things is meeting with them up front and just determining where they're at in the process so that we can help them. But letting go of that house and that change and that move is the single biggest thing that keeps them in their home, because they're afraid of what that's going to look like. One of the things that we regularly recommend is that they move before we put the house on the market.
I love that.
And that is important for two reasons. Number one, that the stress of the showings while they're living in the house is something that they don't really recognize.
No
like
one
they don't
likes
know.
That. No
When
one
you
likes
have
it.
14 showings in one day and you have to leave your home or be in your home with strangers walking through your home, that is
touching
it makes you
stuff.
uncomfortable.
It is incredibly stressful.
Touching their
for
stuff,
them.
going in their closets, no.
Yeah.
Very uncomfortable.
But the other thing that it facilitates, and one of the biggest things that they like, is they want to keep that home as a backup. They can go to their new living community, see how they like it. They always have it in their mind, well, I'll just go back if it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
And then once they get there, they are so relieved.
Yeah.
And they are so happy that then it becomes a good thing to get the house on the market and sell it versus a sad thing, because now they're living in a community, they're not isolated, they have people around them, they have the help they need, and then all of a sudden selling their house becomes a really good thing.
Doesn't seem so bad. And I think it's important too to mention, like you said, a lot of those communities, they don't lock you into contracts anymore because they know that is a big barrier for people. So they'll do month to month leasing, which I think is a big deal. And I think a lot of people actually don't know that. They're not aware of that option. I love that you brought that up.
And Corey, some people think that to live in senior living, with your meals prepared for you and living in a nice apartment, cost upwards of $10,000 a month. That's not entirely true. There's a lot of price ranges, and there's some that are affordable as little as $2,000 or $3,000 a month. And people that say they can't afford to live in senior living, and that's why they still live in their home that maybe is not safe for them, that's just not true.
Well, I think there's a lot of tools out there, and if people go on our website, they can find one, or they contact us, a comparison chart. Like, what are all your bills? Honestly, internet and cable, your phone bill, like, that is more than ever. I'm paying $100 a month just for Wi-Fi alone.
That's right.
I don't even have cable, you know what I mean? And it's still that much. So I think when you really break down your expenses and weigh those pros and cons, I think that they'll see.
We just closed one in our client. The water bill that he owed was $1,500, and then they had to hold another $800 for the next water bill because it's just that's a huge thing at the end of summer and the fall. He had a big house, he had a big yard, and
your water in that yard.
But I've heard that over and over again from the seniors. So when you start looking at things like that, the cost to have the house is astronomical sometimes.
So if someone did contact you and they had been living in their home for a reasonable amount of time, what do you say to them to get the biggest buck? Do you always recommend that they have to put some money in and do some updates, or is that really based on whatever their goals are for the next step?
It's a case by case. I think I mentioned earlier that we are going to go through the house and ask questions. We want to make sure that the electrical is working throughout the house, the plumbing. There's no leaks in the roof. We're just going to ask the homeowner some questions. And we do recommend that it gets fixed to a satisfactory level to pass the home inspection. But as far as making suggestions to upgrade the kitchen counters or, do a new bathroom, that's totally unnecessary and not going to return the investment that they put into, That's why it's different from, a younger person selling.
Yeah.
We may suggest painting the walls or redoing this or that to maximize
some cosmetic
the money.
things.
But for a senior, it's really coming down to just fixing some deferred maintenance.
Yeah, because a lot of times it snowballs, and that's the problem.
Yes.
Is if we come in and say, okay, paint this wall, then all of a sudden it makes that wall look dingy. And then all of a sudden it makes the carpet look old. I mean, it really snowballs.
This is true. That's a really good point.
So sometimes it's easier to just deal with the maintenance and quite frankly, a lot of them are overwhelmed. They're not in a position
It is a lot.
They can't, get the contractors and they can't line that up. It's just more than what they want to do, and they don't need to do it. So
I like that point of view. I think that's nice because I think everybody worries, no matter, we all, obviously our goal is to get the most, and we're like, oh my gosh. Then you start noticing all the things about your house that could use a little help, and then you're like, oh my gosh.
And quite frankly, when you do too much, then you don't want to leave.
That's
people
true.
They do all these updates and they're like, wow, I
finally just got it how I wanted. Now I'm moving. Yeah.
So one more thing we move to the next topic, Corey, is on the handyman. During the initial consultation, I've mentioned a couple times that we talk about what are the needs of the house. You wouldn't believe how many times we ask them, is everything working? Oh no, there's a leak upstairs. How long has it been like that? I don't know, 10 years. They don't trust anybody, Corey.
And for good reason.
Well, absolutely for good reason. But that's the goal that Traci and I walk in for that initial appointment with the senior, is to build that trust so they'll trust us to refer a handyman to them.
I love that.
So that's really critical
I thought
to
you
make
just
us
wear
successful.
your tool belt.
Well, he has been known to do that too. Move tree branches, cut limbs. Yes.
I can do some things, but electrical I can't do, or plumbing.
Yes.
That's maybe a good choice.
But it's building that trust from the onset, and oftentimes those initial meetings with the seniors and their families are 2-3 hours just to get the whole story and to be able to help them the best way possible.
That's a time commitment.
It really is a huge time commitment, but it's worth it. So, and a lot of times they just need to know where to start, and that's one of the things. They just literally don't know which direction to go. How do they get started? And then we sit down and strategize and come up with an actual plan for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that you mentioned too, maybe some trusting issues as far as that goes. Before we started filming, we talked a little bit about interesting I don't know necessarily it's a scam, but you mentioned a lot of the time you'll see signs and stuff that say we buy we buy houses for cash. So how do you guys feel about that? Because I think some seniors are like, oh, we'll just get this done quick because I do need so much work. I have been here for so long. What are your feelings on that? Briefly.
Yeah, it's a multi-level question, but I can tell you that there's a lot of investors out there that like to pick up homes on the cheap and then put a little money into them and resell them a year later.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, our senior population is a frequent target of these investors. And they'll offer, say, $100,000 free and clear, including taking care of all the stuff in the house. And the senior oftentimes doesn't even know how much their home is worth. It could be worth upwards of $200,000-$300,000. But in their mind, they may be in an emotional time where they have to move quickly because they're coming out of rehab. So they'll be, oh, I'll take the $100,000. Well, how long is $100,000 going to last them? Not as long as $250,000, which the home is worth.
That's right.
So that's another reason why we really try to get to the seniors as early as possible with the consultation, with the conversation, and the plan. And we do warn them about these investors that are going to call them, knock on the door, send them a lot of literature through the mail, put signs in the corner of their neighborhoods.
Yep.
They're very relentless in trying to get these deals.
Well, I mean,
and get the houses for cheap.
I get what they're doing, but you're right. I mean, the older we get, it's not like we have monthly income from working, so we need to make sure that we get the most. Like you guys have said, that's your goal in finding that out. I know you mentioned that you are both seniors real estate specialists.
Yes.
It's such a hard,
I know it's so hard to add the
with the
S.
S. I know,
Yes.
but that's what it actually is. And I know, like you mentioned that. That there was some Alzheimer's in your family, and so that kind of drew you to seniors, and you said, you've worked with seniors so long, you saw that need. And I think that's so interesting. You go through the process so many times, those things start to become more apparent.
Yeah.
So why do you feel that the SRES credential helps you to be better equipped than someone who doesn't necessarily have that credential in comparing to another agent? Obviously, I feel you're the best, but...
Well, it's a very intensive course, actually, and it's very comprehensive, and it goes over just what is different and unique about the seniors that are selling their homes and why they need the extra help that they do, and then just strategies for helping them, and it encompasses all sorts of different things, that, and some of it we don't actually get into, like we don't help them with their financial planning. We don't help them with that, but it gives us insight and understanding on all of those things, which then allows us to give them better service in terms of our real estate and helping them find the help that they need.
You know the right questions to ask. And so that's actually my next question. So what are some of the questions that the clients should be asking during those initial consultations?
What questions
should the clients be asking us? Like if they're interviewing realtors or they're talking to different people.
Well, if they specifically want to sell their senior home, they want to make sure that the realtor has the SRES.
I agree with you.
Credential. But even if they do have the SRES credential, they may want to further ask the question: how many SRES and senior sales do they do on an annual basis? Do they only do one? Because there's a lot of realtors that have the SRES credential, plus a lot of other credentials.
There's a lot.
So they're not focused as much as Traci and I are on helping seniors selling their last home. I often use the term that we are micro-niched in that area of real estate, because SRES really covers selling and helping people 50 and older. A lot of our clients are in their 80s and 90s.
Right, so their access to technology and things is way different.
Right, very good point.
And especially, I mean, like you said, if you were going through COVID, then everybody was pretty much doing e-signatures for everything.
Right. So one of the specific things they should look for is access and availability of their agents. So what we bring to the table is, number one, we work as a team. So we are available. We answer our phone. We pick up the phone and call them on a daily basis most of the time. For any of those real estate needs, documents, going over things, we physically drive to them, sit down at the table to go through everything. And then the other thing is we work with title companies that will bring the closing to them specifically.
That's
huge. We have had clients that have wanted to go to a closing at a title company. We pick them up with our own vehicles and drive them there. But we also have ones that can't do that because they're in an assisted living. They're just not that able to get around.
Sure.
And so in those cases, we physically come to them. Like, we bring the whole title company to them, and we do it all at their kitchen table in their apartment.
That's amazing.
So that's an important thing that we offer.
And I wanted to point out one thing. Let's say that the senior can't sign for themselves.
Yes.
They may have assigned a family member as power of attorney.
Correct.
So one thing that Traci and I learned early on back in 2017 when we started Senior Realty Experts is that it's critical to have all of the family members on the same page, because this is selling that family home. And again, the family can be scattered across the U.S. There can be family in New York, California, Florida, and only one power of attorney.
Yeah.
You need to have everybody aware of what's going on, because if you don't, you can really hurt some people's feelings.
Right.
And maybe there could be some estrangement between amongst the family. It's still important, and that's why Traci and I, in the initial meeting, we want to know who all the family members are and making sure everybody's aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
That's so important.
Those are the tough. Those can be the tough ones.
Yes, but it's important.
Well, it definitely makes everything go smoother because, or sometimes if the power of attorney isn't there and then you think you have one plan, not you guys, but just in general, you think you're on the right track, and the next thing you're like, oh, apparently we've been talking to the wrong person this entire time. So that makes it fun. If the person, I love earlier that you mentioned that sometimes clients will go into a senior living or they'll move in with another family member before the house is sold. So what if somebody cannot do that, or they choosing not to do that? How do you handle showings for someone who maybe doesn't have as good as mobility but isn't going down that path necessarily?
We have a lot of capabilities. One of the things we do is we can restrict showing times. We can restrict showing times to certain days and certain hours of the days, and give those seniors a chance, when it's convenient for them, to have somewhere to go. So we can do that. The other thing is if they have to stay in the home, we do our best just to prepare them for what's about to happen. If we need to be there with them, we can do that to kind of be the buffer and the go-between. But we can actually set it up just so that, we can do it just when they are able to be out, if they're able to. So
I think that's really nice. It sounds like you both have so much patience and so much passion to really making sure that it's tailored to the person versus who's coming in per se to buy. I mean, obviously you want to get the best, but I think making sure they have a good experience sounds like it's the most important to both of you.
For sure.
It is.
That's incredible. It does take a lot of patience. There is so much that goes into it between just the logistics of getting the actual relocation completed out of the home, all of the family dynamics. I think it's wonderful that you brought that up because that can make or break.
And I think you have some experience. Sounds like you do, Corey, from what I'm speaking of. And I mean, some of our seniors, they may have early dementia. So it's hard to understand who all the family is sometimes in that initial consultation. But we do our best to find out who everybody is, where they're living, and make them all aware of what's going on. Because, you can run into some pitfalls and some really hurt feelings if you don't keep everybody on the same page.
We're not on the selling side. We do the relocations and the advisory, and that's where the advisory came from. Was all of those different family dynamics or people calling and getting questions that weren't necessarily for a company that did relocation. So we sort of built this around that entire idea. And
you might have one family member call you, and the next day another family member call you, and because the one family member found out from the other one. It's like, oh my God, I got to call senior movers and find out what's going on with mom and dad.
Yep. It's a lot, but I agree with you. No matter how much time it takes on making sure that all of those things happen for the happy ending, it's so worth it.
It is 100%.
All of our closings are really rewarding to us, and we do oftentimes follow up with the seniors where they've moved to see how they're doing.
Right.
So again, James and Traci have the seniors real estate specialist credentials. Obviously, you're both experts in your field. You've shared a lot of personal stories and about your passion, why this specific micro niche, I have to say it, is so passion fueled for you guys. I think it's really special. You can really see how much you do both care. I encourage our audience to reach out to James and Traci. They are a team. You can talk to one or you can talk to both. It's up to you. You can visit their website. It's brookviewrealty.com. You will see a logo on there that says SRES, and if you click that logo, you'll be able to go to the page that specifically talks about senior real estate and some of the resources and things, a little bit more information about why that's different and how they can specifically help you through that. However, if you are not selling your final home and you still need real estate help, you can still reach out to them. Do you guys want to share your cells?
Yep. I can be reached at 248-672-5853.
And my cell phone number is 586-201-5193. We also have a phone number that more of an office line that is reachable at 248-652-7000. But we are very reachable via cell phone.
I'll say you text.
We do text.
You'll text.
I know a lot of our seniors
available.
don't like to text or don't want to text. And that's why phone calls in person is really the way we communicate with our clients.
Do you want to share your emails as well?
Yep. Traci at brookviewrealty.com, and it's Traci, Traci.
And my email address is similar. It's my first name, James, at brookviewrealty.com.
Is there any other quick pieces of advice or tips that you want to share with our audience before we close it out?
I would just say it's never too early to start thinking about it. Even if you think you're not ready to move for a year, it's great to have us come in, just get a baseline idea of what needs to be done in the house, if anything, what the value is, and, a good reference and framework for how to get started.
And then I would add, there's a lot of realtors out there, but not many of them do the specific micro niche real estate that we do. We'd love to help you. And again, like Traci said, it's not too early to call us, even if you don't have to move for a year or two, just to help the process going. And maybe we can hire a few people to help you get from knowing you have to move to the day when you're ready to list the property.
Yeah, and I do think it's important to encourage our listeners to ask the questions that you guys brought up earlier. When you are vetting a real estate specialist or an agent, make sure that their goals align with yours. Mm-hmm.
So true.
Otherwise, the process isn't going to be as smooth, and you don't want to be unhappy. I mean, in any part of the sale, regardless of age, making sure that they ask the right questions, that you are heard, and that they're going to have the patience to do what needs to be done so that everything goes smooth. Again, you can reach James and Traci. Their office number is 248-652-7000. You can find all of their information in the description down below. I want to thank you both so much for joining me on the Senior Podcast Show today. I think you have really great information. I do encourage, again, our listeners to reach out. I mean, obviously, you guys will do free consultations, and you'll come on site. It doesn't have to be a virtual consultation. I think that's amazing. I think it needs to be said. Again, thank you for joining me. We'll see you on the next Senior Podcast Show.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the Season 2 premiere of the Senior Podcast Show. We are thrilled to be back for a second season and are excited to bring you more fun, laughs, and new guests to the show to educate and entertain you. To celebrate the Season 2 premiere and our sponsor, Adviso.com, on February 13th, we began our $500 giveaway with 3 additional chances to win Adviso.com memberships. The giveaway ended March 1st, and we are ready to announce the winners. There were 16,933 total entries from all around the globe. The grand prize winner is Victor G. from Auburn, California. The winner of the Adviso memberships are Marilyn W. from Destin, Florida, Janice L. from Somerset, Kentucky, and Mark O. from Jacksonville, North Carolina. Congratulations to all of our winners, and we appreciate you for entering the Senior Podcast Show's giveaway. We want to thank our sponsor, Adviso.com, and we encourage you to visit their website to learn more about how Adviso can help guide you and your family throughout your journey in aging. The Senior Podcast Show drops new episodes every Tuesday, and we look forward to seeing you then.